In Superforecasting, The Art and Science of Prediction, Philip E. Tetlock, with co-author Dan Gardner, presents an incisive look into what makes some people better at predicting the future than others. The book stems from years of research, most notably the Good Judgment Project, a forecasting tournament that pitted amateur forecasters against professional intelligence analysts. The results were surprising. Regular people, equipped with certain mental habits and techniques, consistently outperformed even those with access to classified information. The book unpacks how these super forecasters think, what they do differently, and how their approach to the future can be learned. Tetlock begins by establishing the dire state of prediction in many fields, particularly politics and economics. Experts, he reveals, are often no better than chance when forecasting future events, despite their competence and credentials. This isn't a failure of intelligence, but rather of methodology and mindset. The key argument is that good forecasting is less about knowing the future and more about constantly updating beliefs, thinking probabilistically, and being open to new evidence. Super forecasters are not oracles, but thinkers who are self-critical, intellectually humble, and perpetually in search of ways to refine their views. The heart of the book lies in the portrait of super forecasters themselves. These individuals, drawn from various backgrounds, often lack high-level professional experience in geopolitics or intelligence. What they do share is an insatiable curiosity, cognitive flexibility, and a willingness to change their minds. Rather than anchoring their beliefs in ideology or identity, they constantly revise their assumptions based on incoming information. Their secret isn't brilliance, but diligence. They break problems down, ask sharp questions, and think in terms of probabilities rather than certainties. One of the essential tools of a superforecaster is probabilistic thinking. Rather than making binary predictions, it will or won't happen, they assign odds to outcomes and then update those odds as events unfold. This might seem counterintuitive in a world that prizes certainty, but Tetlock argues that thinking in probabilities makes you more accurate over time. The best forecasters give precise numerical probabilities, like 63%, rather than vague estimates like probably or unlikely, and they are rigorous about tracking their own success to improve calibration. Calibration is another central theme. A well-calibrated forecaster is one whose predictions match the real-world frequencies of outcomes. If you say there's a 70% chance of something happening, then it should occur about 70% of the time. Super forecasters meticulously measure their forecasts against reality and adjust accordingly. They are relentless in this practice, often keeping spreadsheets of predictions and results to refine their instincts and reveal where their biases may lie. The book delves into the mental habits that separate good forecasters from the average. These include the ability to break problems into smaller parts, to consider multiple perspectives, and to weigh evidence impartially. Super forecasters engage in what Tetlock calls actively open-minded thinking, a process that resists the pull of confirmation bias. They seek out disconfirming evidence, embrace complexity, and are comfortable with ambiguity. Unlike pundits who stake their reputations on bold, unwavering predictions, super forecasters view beliefs as hypotheses to be tested. Group dynamics also come into play. When super forecasters work together in teams, they tend to perform even better. But not just any team will do. Effective forecasting groups are characterized by intellectual humility, mutual respect, and constructive dissent. In contrast to echo chambers or groupthink, these teams thrive on argument and are more interested in accuracy than being right. Tetlock describes how the best teams use aggregative judgment, pooling individual forecasts and using algorithms to synthesize them into a more accurate collective outlook. The role of feedback is essential. Tetlock emphasizes that timely and specific feedback is crucial for improving prediction skills. Most experts don't get this in their day-to-day lives. Their predictions are vague, long-term, or never revisited. Super forecasters, by contrast, keep score. They want to know when and why they were wrong so they can adjust. This culture of accountability stands in stark contrast to the vague pronouncements of talking heads who are rarely held responsible for their inaccurate forecasts. Tetlock explores the psychological underpinnings of overconfidence and the dangers of hedgehog thinking, named after Isaiah Berlin's famous essay distinguishing between hedgehogs, who know one big thing, and foxes, who know many little things. Hedgehogs often perform worse as forecasters because they are prone to rigid thinking and ideological commitments. Foxes, the heroes of Tetlock's narrative, are better forecasters precisely because they are eclectic, self-questioning, and ready to change their minds. Historical case studies pepper the book, illustrating both the failures and successes of forecasting. From the Iraq War to the 2008 financial crisis, Tetlock shows how institutional arrogance and flawed reasoning can lead to catastrophic misjudgments. These failures underscore the need for more disciplined and transparent methods of assessing risk and uncertainty. By contrast, the Good Judgment Project's track record during its 4-year run provided concrete proof that better forecasting is possible when you apply the right mindset and tools. One of the more surprising findings in the book is how much superforecasting is a learnable skill. While some people may have a natural inclination toward open-minded thinking and probabilistic reasoning, Tetlock insists that practice and discipline play a larger role. This is empowering. Forecasting is not reserved for geniuses, but open to anyone willing to adopt the habits of rigorous inquiry and intellectual humility. Tetlock outlines practical steps for improving one's forecasting ability, such as keeping a forecasting journal, using base rates, and thinking in terms of conditional probabilities. The book also touches on the limits of forecasting and the dangers of over-reliance on prediction. Some events are genuinely unpredictable, and Tetlock cautions against forecasting theater, when predictions are made more for show than substance. The challenge, then, is to strike a balance between making thoughtful, probabilistic forecasts and acknowledging the uncertainty that is baked into the future. The goal is not perfect foresight, but better informed decisions. One of the most compelling themes is the ethical dimension of forecasting. Superforecasting, at its best, is about intellectual responsibility. It requires a commitment to truth over ideology, accuracy over ego, and learning over performance. Tetlock contrasts this with the performative confidence of many media pundits and politicians who rarely admit error. Superforecasters, by comparison, embrace doubt, revise often, and own their mistakes. The final chapters of the book consider the practical applications of superforecasting, from business and government to personal decision-making. Tetlock argues that we need to cultivate a forecasting culture in our institutions, one that values clarity, accountability, and learning. He proposes reforms in how intelligence agencies, corporations, and even everyday citizens approach decision-making. The idea is not to turn everyone into a forecasting expert, but to infuse public discourse with more rigor and humility.